Now, in this conversation, this ongoing conversation about finances that Colby and I have been having, and I'm sure a lot of you have been having, we are on to the topic of accumulating wealth. So, the accumulation of wealth is something that not all of us know about, but we all should have an idea about, or at the very least have it somewhere in our awareness, because the special thing we call money is a tool, but it is a means to the ends that we wish to get to. So if we do want to serve humanity, if we do want to work together, if we want to see unity, if we want to see so many different things, it really has a lot to do with using the tools that are available to us to achieve that goal. And so money is one of these interesting tools. I caution you guys from seeing money as an end in and of itself. But that being said, here at Colby and want to talk a little bit about accumulating wealth and what are some tools that are available to us that we may not be aware of or that we can take advantage of?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, which is there's a seeming conflict between wanting to live a life where we are able to distance ourselves from our reliance on material things and then our need to accumulate wealth, because they both have to happen. And how does that work? It's like I got to make money, but then I got to distance myself from money so that I can cultivate my spiritual side. I think what's interesting is there's one concept that we've talked a little bit about, and I think is key to all of this, which is self-reliance. So I want to throw the ball back into your court and ask you, when you hear the word self-reliance or the term self-reliance, what is it that comes to mind to you?
I think at the very base of my beliefs, there's reliance upon God. That's the deepest it gets, right? Now, reliance upon the tools that I've been given by God is where I go from there. And then there's all the principles surrounding the faith, the faith path that I'm on that has to do with empowering yourself, empowering others, and mutualism and cooperation, right? So self-reliance is being kind of an individual of your own, but within a whole. Part of that larger oneness of mankind thing is that we aren't separate parts of this larger scheme. We're actually part of one body, right? So like if, one nation is a heart and one nation is a liver, you can say that they do different things, but they are actually promoting the well-being of the whole body. And so in that same sense, I think of individuals and the community in that sense. Like each individual plays a vital role, but the self-reliance part is where I am not taking more from the whole than I am giving. Or I'm contributing more than I need to take, ideally, right? So that seems to be a prosperous setup. But self-reliance is something that's, I believe, has to be learned. I don't believe it's innate. And therefore, there needs to be models of behavior that help us understand self-reliance, as well as there needs to be some sort of evidence that self-reliance is valuable. And in order for us to see being self-reliant as valuable, we have to see that other people value it. And sometimes it seems like that self-reliance or people who, fall under this unfettered individualistic model seem to be like, I'm self-reliant, therefore, why can't you do this? I did it myself, why couldn't you do this? Where, that wasn't really a fair assessment. It's an oversimplification. Mm-hmm. So trying not to oversimplify, but that's kind of where my understanding of self-reliance kind of lies.
Yeah, so basically we've got self-reliance and individualism are two facets of this gemstone, which is, the human being. There are two things that you said. First, you want to be in a position to help others. So I think that when we consider self-reliance, it isn't so that we can stand apart and belittle others because they haven't been able to achieve what we've achieved because, as you said, look at me, I was able to do it, why can't you? But rather, if we have the goal of self-reliance, it's so that we can have the freedom from these institutional forces, things like the banking system, things like, the education system, these institutional oppressors If we can be self-reliant from those institutions, then we'll have the freedom to succeed and to serve others. So what does that mean? I mean, the most obvious one is with the banking system, because if you are reliant upon the banking system to pay your monthly bills, for the house that you live in, for the car that you drive in, for everything that you do, if you need to constantly be borrowing money from the bank through a credit card or whatnot, you are not self-reliant. You are reliant on that bank. And without the bank and without your connection to the bank, your life's going to be pretty difficult. So by looking at self-reliance and a severing of your connection from the bank, then you do not have to work again to service your debts. Rather, you can work for yourself and work for the others in your community in order to have the time and the money to be able to participate in the community. If we look at education, to the extent that we can cultivate a spirit of knowledge and learning within our own life, then of course, degrees are important and going to this school or that school is important. But you might have the confidence to say, you know what, I'm not going to need to go to this private school that has maybe a little bit of pedigree, because I know I'm smart. I know people like to listen to what I have to say and they like my perspective. So guess what? I'm going to go to a community college, or I'm going to go to a state school, and I'm going to show them that I'm really intelligent and it doesn't matter. I'm going to come out with a lot less debt and start my own business with the money I saved, for example. So I think that, if we look at self-reliance, it can just be a guide in order to create the freedom we need to then serve. Because as you said, our number one obligation is to God. We are relying on God, and therefore our purpose is to serve humanity and to cultivate our relationships with the members of our community. But in order to best do that, we need to be in a position where we can have the freedom to do so. Mm-hmm.
Which are not visible to the eye, but which are rapid enough to be sensed by the ear.